Okay, back again, Dilly Boy, with another one for y'all. You guys know what time it is. Sloppy with the videos, getting one out every 2 weeks. It looks like now, but it is what it is. I got a lot of videos for y'all ready, written, and just needs to hit the press. But got some time today, so we gonna do this one today. Now, last video, last three videos need to be linked with this video in order for this stuff to really come together for y'all. I did one, I believe it's called "It Is Islam," right? Where I laid out the fact that you can't just totally separate Islam from a lot of the stuff that we see going on in the world today. Then it's not the West. There's another one I did where I was saying, hey, like, you can't just totally blame the West for everything that's going on. You guys really want to watch those videos if you're interested in this type of stuff, if you want to know, if you find yourself thinking about these issues, if you see what's going on in the world, in the news, in the media, with all this other stuff that's going on right now, and you're wondering how sort of the chessboard of the world is operating and all this type of stuff. We're going to talk about Epstein. We're going to talk about the way people see things, unique angles on Renee Good and all these other characters and what's happening in Minneapolis and all this stuff. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because I find it to be fruitful and beneficial. And I find that as Christians, we can have a spin on these things, or we could spin off of these things and show how a lot of this stuff really ties into theology and ties into the whole backdrop of what's really behind the universe, the spiritual warfare that we're facing and those type of things. And it's just good to explore and think through things anyways, even if what I'm saying, even if it's not necessarily connecting. They say knowledge is power and that type of stuff. So it's always good to be informed. It's always, even if I'm wrong, it's good to like engage with my perspective and be able to see a different perspective, and then even to see how to argue against that perspective as well. So it's always good and fruitful. Now, so I did It Is Islam, It's Not the West, and then we did one called Suicidal West. And Suicidal West was dealing with a lot of the issues that we see, all kinds of counterproductive policies that are in place that seems to be working against us. You would think policy creators would create things that would basically cause human flourishing, that would lead to better lives, that would lead to more security, that would lead to better, societies in general that's fruitful, beneficial, happy, what I'm saying, prosperous and all this other stuff. But there's a bunch of policies I laid out in that video that seems counterproductive today. What we're going to do is get into the other half of West. So that would be Suicidal West Part 1. This is Suicidal West Part 2. And we're going to kick it right off today for the explanation for why we see a bunch of policies that are not productive to our societies being implemented in the West. Now, before I get right into it, let me just say that there's no one answer that fixes all of this necessarily. Of course, sorry, there's no one answer as to the problem. There's one answer that will fix all of it, which is Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Everybody y'all need Jesus. You know what I'm saying? You lead automatically, bro. If everybody was a God fearing, Christ centered, Holy Spirit led, following person, then for sure every issue on the face of the earth would just kind of vanish. Like, at least, you'd still deal with problems like, whatever enigmas are on the face of the earth. You might still have cancer and all that stuff, but there's a prescription, there's a thing for dealing with all of that type of stuff in Christianity, a way to think about things, a way to grieve, a way to be that that collaborates well with faith. Let's say that. So this is not me laying out these couple of things here, although these are big deals that we're going to talk about, is not the only problems. Of course, there's other reasons that we could point to for why we have all kinds of backwards and counterproductive policies that we have adopted in the West, that we can point to. But here, we're going to look at some of what this is, right? And so let me talk about the Muslim Brotherhood for a second, you know what I'm saying? And let me talk about their plans for the West. And you're going to kind of see, like, some of what I'm getting at, So let's go, let's read into it right here. Explanatory memorandum. This is what this is called. This surfaced in during a FBI investigation in the early 2000s. It's a frequent topic of debate in national security and political circles. So this is the breakdown of what the document basically says, right? The full title is the Explanatory Memorandum on the General Strategic Goal for the Group in North America. Now, origin, it is written in 1991 by a man named Muhammad Akram, who was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood leadership in the U.S. at the time. The FBI discovered this during 2004 on a house on a raid on a house in Virginia. It later became a key piece of evidence in the Holy Land Foundation trial, right, which was the largest terrorist financing case in the U.S. history. Yo, so what does it actually say, right? The memorandum describes a long-term strategy for the Muslim Brotherhood to establish itself in the West. The most famous controversial passage describes their work in America as the Grand Jihad, in eliminating and destroying Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands. Interesting, right? And the hand of the believers, so that it will so that it is eliminated and God's religion is made victorious over all other religions, right? So here they were planning to use ourselves against ourselves. Does that sound like that's starting to make sense of the backwards and counterproductive policies that we're seeing? If you have groups who are largely invested in ultimately destroying your way of life, this is not unique. This is not something different. This is not something. All of the stuff that we're talking about, Epstein and all this stuff, none of this stuff is new. None of this stuff is like, the face of the earth has seen all of this before. We've always known about the files, the pedo files, you know what I'm saying, and all of these other kind of files that exist. Sexual immorality has always been a thing on the face of the planet. This is not nothing new. This is not something we just stumble across. Oh, whoa, there was satanic, oh, demonic, oh, evil. Like people are going crazy in the world. Like they didn't know this stuff existed. Like the rappers haven't been talking about it. Like the you know what I'm saying, the industry is not proud of sexual immorality in their music and in the things that they put out and in the art that they put out. Like, you don't be watching weird stuff on your computer, you know what I'm saying? Like, act like you don't deal with struggles and stuff like that. We all do, bro. This is human nature. These are things that appeal to our nature and our carnal appetites, you know what I'm saying? And for as long as there's been blackmail, there's been stuff like the Epstein file. For as long as there's been, you know what I'm saying, rival groups on the face of the planet, this stuff has been going on. Look, you could look at case study after case study. You could look at Iran and all these other places where, you know what I mean, there was like major overthrows and overturning of governments and stuff like that. They always have the Marxists and the anarchists and the, you know what I'm saying, these other groups, the revolutionaries, and often they use the revolutionaries to throw over the current system, and then the system that replaces it is, the hope is that you're gonna be the new thought that leads, you know what I'm saying? When the left and the crazy lunatics are trying to destroy and overthrow and defund and like take away all this take away all the stuff that you're seeing, all the authorities and the policing system, the justice system, and the government and things like that. When they're trying to annex the system, they're trying to make sure they think that their idea is the one that's going to get in place. You know what I'm saying? We in the first video we talked about the fight, the struggle that happens between these groups after the strong man is removed, right? So we pretend like Donald Trump is the strong man, or the U.S. government is the strong man. Remove the U.S. government, and who gets power? Now it's not clear. Do the anarchists, do the Marxists, and what are their ideas, and what do they want to float? Do the liberals and the West, like who is the person that gets installed after? It's not clear. There's more fighting, there's more killing, there's more murdering, there's more stuff that goes on there. Now the hope, if I'm the Muslim Brotherhood here, my hope is that we install some kind of government that's pro-Islamic, that's Sharia led or something like that, and like will ultimately, what I'm saying, undermine Western civilization, Western thought minds, other religions. Of course, right here it says that they're planning on doing that so that and eliminating them, and that God's religion, which obviously is Islam, is made victorious over all other religions. So this is a religious thing. This is a dominance thing. This is them. And some people will say, no, they're just invoking religion into this. They really want money and power and fame and sex. I don't know why I'm steering away from the word. I'm trying to like make the videos not too grungy, not just so we like don't be able to engage in listening to it, in every setting, but at the same time so that it could reach more people as well. Because when you talk about too many grungy things, of course, like they get a little skeptical about if they're gonna let you be on certain whether they promote you to certain algorithms and things like that, right? But here, their plan is to dominate over all other religions. Now, some people don't understand this. They're like, oh, it can't be. It can't be just that. I'm a religious zealot, bro. I'm a person who children, like I believe, I like not even believe, I know Jesus is God. You know what I'm saying? That's where I'm at, with this. I know there's demons, you know what I'm saying? I've met them, I've seen them, you know what I'm saying? Like I've talked with them, like, you know what I'm saying? I know that there's like all this spiritual warfare and battle and all this type of stuff going on. I've seen, like, I've been around for long, as this stuff is as real to me as me sitting in front of this camera and talking to y'all. So I know this stuff is real. And now, the Epstein files and all this stuff is coming out with this stuff. It's showing you that there's all this craziness going on in the background, spirit cooking dinners and who's like eating and killing babies. And I know all you guys, some of you guys are like, oh, well, duh, we know that. Some of you guys are like, that's crazy, it's not happening, where are you know what I'm saying? But I mean, you read through the Epstein files and stuff like that, and there's 3 million pages been released recently. Nobody's reading through 3 million pages, but there's all this type of stuff out there. Never mind Epstein, there's always been these, type of issues and things like that. And I'll tell you what's happening at governmental levels anyways, right? What's happening is there's like, worship of God, right? And then there's worship of Satan. Now, ultimate worship of God is holiness, righteousness, the most righteous things you can do: being kind, being loving, being caring, being diligent, being self-sacrificial, looking out for other people's interests. These are the virtues, you know what I'm saying? It comes with real love, real, like, humility, real sacrifice, and then everything evil over here, death and destruction and, lying and cheating and hurting people and deceit. So, you think about the most holy things that you can do, and this is like your ultimate worship to Jesus. This is your ultimate worship to God. And then you think about the most unholy thing that you can do, the darkest, most evil, most deviant thing that you can do, things that we can't discuss on this podcast even, you know what I'm saying, with children and like, you know what I'm saying, like, yo, bro, I mean, it's crazy, right? Like if you saw a child, you know what I'm saying, in them type of position, like all gagged up and like the type of stuff they're doing with these youths, and then like, it's dark, right? And then you think about, okay, well, you know what I'm saying, like that is really bad. Like, yeah, but that is the ultimate worship to Satan. You know what I'm saying? The ultimate the ultimate sort of like middle finger to God, if you will. You know what I'm saying? And Satan's like, oh yeah, clapping because, of course, you know what I'm saying? This is what he wants to see established in the world. This is what makes him happy. This is what makes him feel, torturing people and getting people, you know what I'm saying? And to this, and victims be victimizers and all kinds. It's a perpetual, repetitive cycle of victims that are victimizing people, hurting people, you know what I'm saying? It's what they are out for, you know what I'm saying? But here we have a confession that there is a plot, at least, as a part of what we're seeing manifesting. Let's keep going and see how we can work this out still, right? To achieve this, the document outlines a process of settlement, or takim, that's what they call it, which involves institutional infiltration, creating a parallel society by establishing Islamic schools, students organizations like MSA, and professional groups. So does this start to make sense now? Do you see all these little, pro-Islam, like anti-Western campaigns and all the little school teachings and you know what I'm saying? This is like, and I heard it said that it takes about 15 years normally for you to influence an entire generation, because it takes 15 years to educate an entire generation. So all you really need to do is really like infiltrate the school system, the educational system, the social media platforms and things like that, to poison the minds of the children. You guys ever wonder why they wanted to ban TikTok from America? Is, oh, they just want to ban TikTok because it's the Chinese and like they're just the weirdos. You guys are victims of the system if you already think this way. If you already think, well, the US is evil automatically and the Israelis are evil automatically, and you think that, like, these other actors, by the way, evil is everywhere. Evil is not particular to skin color. No, it's not a skin issue. It's a sin issue. You know what I'm saying? And it's in the hearts. Of evil is prevalent inside of your heart. The Bible says if you say you have no sin, you're a liar, and the truth is not in you. You know what I'm saying? That means Jesus doesn't live in you if you can't admit that you fall and you stumble and you deal with sin. You know what I'm saying? So try to act like, oh, your group doesn't. Oh, the liberals, they're the virtuous. Oh, CNN, they're virtuous. Oh, MSNBC, they're virtuous. Oh, this one is virtuous. Like, oh, Donald Trump, oh, the MAGA group, they're virtuous. You know what I'm saying? And your tribe can never do no wrong, right? Everything, even if you see something positive from the other tribe, you can't even admit that they did something good, because, you know what I'm saying? That's why you don't get no win on no policies or nothing like that, because your tribe has to be the good guy and the other tribe has to be the bad guy. If you're black and you're with the Black Lives Matter movement, then everything that the white man does is crazy. Everything that you know what I'm saying? If you're with the white, like, you know what I'm saying, supremacy groups or something like that, then everything has to be interpreted as evil. If you're a Christian and you're against the Muslims, you can't admit that, these Muslims, sometimes they do good things and they have like good people and they have good societies or something like that. So somewhere you can't give them no wins. If you're Muslim and you're looking at the Christians or the Jews, yeah, no, the Jews are always evil. If your tribe does something wrong, if there's 12 million people being killed in your nation because of infighting in your own groups and your own societies and Shiites and this one and that one. Oh no, it has to be Israel. Israel is the one that's doing it without any evidence, without looking at the Facebook post that you're looking at critically and thinking through it, without even asking, if this is true on Gemini or ChatGPT or something like that. The bare minimum of research, no, you believe it. Oh, like, look at this guy with the kafir. He has on the, little Jewish hat, you know what I'm saying? AI videos, AI pictures, you're not even gonna check, you know what I'm saying? Because why? Your tribe is right, you know what I'm saying? No matter what, it's not, it's not, everybody has evil in them, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? You has every type of person, you know what I mean? But you see these anti-Western sentiments manifesting from schools and education systems and teachers, and, you know what I'm saying? And you're wondering what's going on. 15 years is what they said takes to educate an entire generation. Here we see in this Muslim Brotherhood plot that there is a plot to infiltrate, what's called the institution, the institutional infiltration, right? Education, influencing the spirit and mind, quote unquote, of the people by embedding Islamic precepts, perspectives within educational and social systems, right? We covered that already. Alliances, forming tactical partnership with other political and social groups to gain influence in public disclosure. This is something we talked about in other videos. You know what I'm saying? Some people don't believe in democracy, but they'll use democracy to get to power, and then they'll undermine democracy once they're in power. People say, oh, Trump is doing that, blah, 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 and this one is doing that. And it's funny to me, like, that, you know, say people look at certain places where women's rights are at the ultimate top, and the, like, you know, rights for LGBTQ, not even just like top, like above and beyond, like all other rights of other people. You know what I'm saying? When's the last time you went somewhere and found you don't even have a flag? I'm sorry, for whatever your identity is, you know what I'm saying? I'll post it on the doors and saying everyone is welcome here, you know what I'm saying? Why does it say, yo? Because there's another level of rights these people have. There's a domain where they exist in, where they get full, like, you know, immunity to anything. You know what I'm saying? They could do anything. The mans are dancing naked in front of your children. Oh, well, it's Pride Parade, blah, blah, blah. The mans are like dressing up a certain way. Can you imagine that? I seen teachers that, like, people will ridicule, and because the teacher maybe is a female, and maybe she's like really beautiful looking, like gorgeous fit, and she has on certain clothes, not even just, not even like immodest in a sense, but revealing in a sense that it might be tight. Like, I mean, it's not showing the skin, but she might be wearing a tight, like, pants and a tight top and something like that, and her figure showing, and people are like, and then you got the like full on, like, the trans man something, drag queen something, dressing a liquor ting. I don't know, like, yo, bro, like this, yeah, I don't know. Even, I won't lie, I don't even think the women in the strip clubs are dressing like that, you know, no more. Daily boy don't go to no strip club. Y'all tell me, I don't know, but the things them mans are wearing in front of the little picnic them, and then dancing up and all kind of thing, and that is, and we're like, why would that, you know, why is it when we see a teacher who's teaching the kids that maybe dress, but like, we can recognize that this is wrong, this is evil, and then when we see that, we don't recognize that wrong and evil. Oh, don't, no, don't say anything, don't say anything, they're transgender. Anyways, bruh, you know. And that's not on the Muslim brother. Although, again, they'll use any tool at their disposal to help to overthrow the current regime. And then, what, you ever wonder why the left and the Muslims are tied up together? You ever wonder why, like, you know what I'm saying, there's queers for Palestine and all kind of thing, and no queers are coming out for Iran or nothing like that, or no queers are coming out, they're human, everybody, oh, we care about humans. When the humans are getting slaughtered in Iran, they're not talking about it. When the humans are getting slaughtered in Congos, they're not talking about it. When the humans are getting slaughtered in Nigeria, they're not talking about it. You know what I'm saying? But they got all the way. Oh, yo, 70,000 people. Oh, like, you know what I'm saying? They'll bleed your ears about if it's the Jews. You know what I'm saying? And they were defending their nation. Okay, you know, here's what. Okay, maybe you'll say, Dale, well, that was unjustified, whatever. I'm not arguing that. I'm not arguing whether it's justified or not. But there is a legitimate October 7th event that, you know, that gets to, that blurs that muddies that. If you want to say the Jews are evil, find something totally unjustified and talk about it, fine, right? We'll chat. Even the Renee Good and the, like, you know what I'm saying, the Alex Preddy shooting, like, if you guys haven't seen this Minnesota shooting by ICE and whatnot, where people died, these two people out of, like, I don't know, it's over 600,000 people that were deported. Of course, like, there's lots of child predators and, like, lots of children. I think over 6,000 children that were found, like a good set of children that were found, you know what I'm saying? A lot of narcotics that were taken off the street, a lot of people who were murderers and killers or whatever, right? So this is a part of it, right? However, in those cases, you still got some kind of stickiness. A man, one case, a woman hit a man with his car, and this guy has been dragged like months before by another car, and like what I'm saying, like there's all this stickiness of like well, it's not clean. It's not a clean thing for you to say ICE is evil. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like it's gonna be messy. You're gonna have to debate with someone. There's gonna be people looking at the same videos and like, and I say, yo, no, no, but legit, she ran the car into, you know what I'm saying? And so they can fend for that perspective. Find one where it's totally crazy, like totally out of the bed. Oh, they came out of the car. This man was just walking with his hand in his pocket, minding his business, had nothing to do with nothing. Citizen, bam, shot him in his head. You know what I'm saying? You got Alex Preddy, this man, like, who had a thing on him, and he had extra clips, and the thing probably bust off like during the encounter with ICE, and of course there was like this whole beef with him 11 days earlier, kicking out taillights and potentially being a part of an organized group to disrupt, what I'm saying, law enforcement and stuff like that. And then it gets sticky. It's not a clean argument, you know what I'm saying? So even if you want to say, well, this Alex Preddy thing, find something better, you know what I mean? Find something a little bit more clear, because right now those situations can go both ways in court. Like, once, I'm guessing they're gonna have a court case and whatnot, and even in the court of public opinion, it's already gone a certain way. Half people are like, yeah, that's a clean shoot. Half the people are like, no, it's not a clean shoot. So you got to find a better, cleaner example. Same thing with Israel and all these type of things. You know what I'm saying? With October 7th, and with the fact that they had hostages, with the fact that there was tunnels, with the fact that there was mans hiding out in there, with the fact that Hamas is a terrorist organization, with the fact that they launched 7,000 missiles into Israel, with the fact that you got Ron back in the mall. Oh man, like, there's so many things to go through here where it's like, yeah, it's not clean. Like, there's a whole history and all this type of stuff going on. You gotta find something a little better. But it's really funny to me that people will look at all these situations and look at these nations where human rights are at the utmost, and then you're like defending nations where there is no religious freedom, where there is no freedom of speech. You guys criticizing the government, go there and criticize the government and see what happens to you. You know what I'm saying? Like the same as that came over from there and are sitting here and hollering, oh, the Canadian government, you know what I'm saying? Canada gives you that right, fam. You could criticize them, you can cuss them up and down, you can do, you know what I'm saying? Like, well, you can't do that over there, you know what I'm saying? And so we wonder where the virtue is, you know what I'm saying? We wonder what the real thing in the background is here, you know what I'm saying? And if you guys want, you could look at the video I got called Satan Behind Kings. That's a really good video for thinking about really what's happening all the way up in the ranks. Spoiler, it's the devil. You know what I'm saying? It's right up there at the top. You know what I mean? Oh man, that's Medata. She's probably here. Let me just pause. Okay, where was I? You know what I mean? I think I was talking about, I don't know. I don't know where I was. I feel like I might have to rewind a little bit to catch my footing, but I know we was talking about how there's not a clean shoot in some of these situations. It's not totally clean, but I was talking about the hypocrisy of people judging the West when they're not talking about the fact that there's no religious freedom in all these other countries. And this ties back into what we were saying about what's happening to our system. Why is it that we've turned against ourselves or turned inward on ourselves? Of course, immigration has something to do with that. You know what I'm saying? Bringing in mass droves of people that really don't like your religion, don't really like your society, don't think that, you're good or like anything. They actually think you're evil. They think you're the wicked. You think, oh, I think I was also talking about the satanic part of it. I was saying somewhere at the top here for you guys. I was referencing you guys to look at the video called Satan Behind Kings. That's a good video, bro. One of my best videos, by the way. I would say my top video, most underrated video, if you guys want to watch one video that, but you got to be ready, you know what I'm saying, to listen to this stuff. 2 hour long video, and to kind of take in what's happening overall, giving you the whole robust idea of what's happening as much as Daily Boy possible. You know what I'm saying? Because Daily Boy is not, I'm just me. Anyways, the video on love, one of the best videos. I think that is top video because if you grasp that well, like, you know what I'm saying, it'll fix everything. You know what I mean? Let's get to it. Let's look at some other points that I want to make here. So, let's talk about foreign funding in the U.S., right? We're talking about the U.S. mainly here, but, you could apply this broadly to the West, right? Foreign funding in the U.S. is a major point of debate, especially regarding how it shapes curriculum in schools and policies in Washington. While China and Qatar are the most frequently discussed, several other nations spend billions to exert soft power, quote unquote, soft power, to protect their economic and their security interests. Below are the biggest players currently influencing the U.S. educational and political systems. Right. So, what are we talking about here? We're talking about enemy states. Let's put it this way: unfriendly states to the U.S. using money and funneling into the political system to undermine us, to destroy us as a form of warfare. This is what's called the Cold War. You know what I'm saying? As you guys would know, it's not war fought with guns and bullets, but it's a war fought with systems. You know what I'm saying? Using the systems against you, using the systems. And, the social system is causing Americans to work and slave and hand out their taxpayer dollar, and then they're taking the taxpayer dollar and they're giving it to these communities, and these communities are rinsing the system and then sending the money away and stuff like that. So you're a hamster on a wheel, you're running around, you think you're serving your country, you think you're serving your own interest, but they're actually taking your money, using you as like, as cattle, and then taking your finances and then pouring it in to destroying you, your own enemies, and things like that to further the interests of other people. In the world of chess that's going on, it's genius. You know what I'm saying? And I always say we gotta take accountability. Pointing the finger, saying, "Oh, Qatar's doing this and China's doing this," and that. Yeah, but how are you letting it happen to you? You know what I'm saying? So, we gotta take responsibility for some of this stuff. Anyways, let's look at Qatar. Qatar is by far the largest foreign donor to U.S. universities. Since 2001, it has funneled over $6 billion into American higher education. From 2006, you know what I mean? Now, mind you, this is what we know about. So, like, only recently, I think it was under the Trump administration, they made a policy in which if you're donating over $250,000, you have to disclose it. And this is when we started finding out that all of these, foreign governments have been funding some of the most liberal universities in the country. And this, you ever wonder why all the teachers seem to be liberal and like crazy? You know what I'm saying? My brethren told me the other day she went to go get some education for something. I don't know if it was like some like PSW or something. And then the teacher is there talking about, if you take this class and you're a Christian, you're gonna leave your religion before you leave this class. Why? Two of them. You know what I'm saying? Out of the two classes, 2 out of 2 were saying you're gonna leave. And I've heard this story before. And I've read my kids' work and stuff like that. Like, I got one daughter. I say my kids because my nephew's like my youth anyways, But my daughter's work, sometimes, like, when she was younger, I would read through her social studies work, and they literally say Christianity's wrong and stuff like that in these textbooks. Like, they were older Christians were taking their message, and because they believed that Jesus was blah blah, and they were trying to save the people by taking the gospel, and then they used the word falsely. So it's like Christianity is false and falsely trying to spread what they think is good news for people or stuff like that. Why is that in the books? You know what I'm saying? Why are you guys teaching? Or, you know what I'm saying? Of course, now we as Christians understand the spiritual warfare that we're in, we recognize that there's a practical manner in which the enemy is using these tools against people. And so here's a situation in which that's happening. And so here's one of the reasons you'll see so many liberal teachers and influencers and social media accounts and all this other stuff popping up that are pushing these agendas in our society, because largely there's massive bits of funding coming in. You know what I mean? And so they're basically not only educating the population against themselves, so they have a slew of people graduating from these universities who then they're going to funnel back into the system as teachers to basically teach the same things, because they're already teaching out of their conviction for their leftist ideology and those type of things. And so this is what we have going on largely, right? And so you got that selection, and of course there's the idea that they're only giving you the funding if you add these things to the curriculum. They're only giving you the funding if you hire the teachers that they want. They're only giving you this. So there's demands as to why you get the funding. You think these people are handing out billions of dollars like stupidly? No, of course they know what they're doing. The influence, much of this goes towards branch campuses in Doha, like the Georgetown, like those for Georgetown, Cornell, and Northwestern. However, billions are also given as research grants and gifts to mainland U.S. schools. Right? The concern. Critics and congressional investigators have raised concerns that this funding correlates with the rise in anti Israel sentiments and the promotion of Islamic ideologies on campuses. Interesting, eh? This is what you always hear from the people who are like, the Muslims in general, which is very like hypocritical and weird, right? They're always like, oh, the Jews, they want to take over the world. They want to, the Jewish nation is one little tiny sliver of a nation. It's one nation that demands have control over, right? The Muslim world has 50 something nations that they conquered by conquest, by the way, of course. Whatever, that's the way of the world. They conquered it. But and then they're talking about the one nation. Well, people who have one nation, they want to conquer the world. But the people who have conquered half the world don't want to conquer the world. The people who are telling you they want to conquer the world don't want to conquer the world. The people who want to impose their religion and their theology and everything, they're the ones, they don't want to conquer the world. They're the ones that are complaining, oh, look, these guys, they're the ones that want to conquer you. Look over there, they're the ones. You know what I'm saying? While they're trying to conquer you, you know what I'm saying? While they're trying to do their thing, you know what I'm saying? And so you see this all the time. Israel, the population, very small compared to the Islamic world and other worlds. If you look at the GDP of Israel, the money that they bring in, that they have, their total, it's a blip on the scale of the universal currency and the type of money that you talk about. Saudi Arabian money, you talk about Dubai money, you talk about, you know what I'm saying, all these other nations combined. Israel is nowhere on the charts, my friend. Mossad and their influence versus all the Islamic nations and their influence over people and those type of things, you know what I'm saying? Their reach and the money that they're spending to influence the West and all kinds of stuff. You know what I mean? Now, mind you, again, what we're seeing on these lists are just what we're seeing. Of course, there's lots more money in the background being passed around that you wouldn't know about. I even wonder about the $250,000 thing, right? Why don't I just give, several increments of less than, let's say $249,449 and, 99 cents. Why don't I just give something short, just shy of 250,000 800 times, you know what I'm saying? And then I basically got you, I don't know, maybe I'm silly, but I could see loopholes in the system. Anyways, let's look at China, right? China's influence is focused on both technological and cultural narratives. Educational historically China funded Confucius institutes, Is that correct? Yeah. Language and culture centers on over 100 U.S. campuses. Most closed after being labeled foreign missions by the U.S. government, but funding continues through research partnership, particularly with AI and engineering. China spends heavily on lobbying, FARA, FARA, to influence trade policies and technological sanctions. In 2023, Chinese linked entities spent over 85 million on US influence operations. Saudi Arabia, let's look at this one. Since 9/11 attacks and more recently the Khashoggi incident, Saudi Arabia has spent billions to rebrand its image and maintain its security alliances. Education. They have donated roughly 4 billion to US schools since 1980. They often fund centers for Islamic studies or provide massive tuition payments for thousands of Saudi students to at US state universities. Politics. They are constantly a top three spender on Washington lobbyists, focusing on weapon deals and energy policies. United UAE, right? The UAE often overlooked, but is incredibly effective at elite influence, education, and think tanks. The UAE has donated over 1.7 billion to U.S. universities. They are also one of the largest funders of Washington D.C. Think tanks like the Middle East Institute, which writes the policy papers that the U.S. lawmakers read. Interesting, eh? Their influence. Their goal typically is to ensure U.S. remains hostile to Iran and supportive of Emirati rational regional interests. You see, so I mean, I could go through and talk about like a lot of what we read, but I think you guys get the point. You guys, and then maybe I'll just do a wrap up after of what we're seeing and how this connects to the topic that we're discussing. I'm pretty sure you guys already get it. You know what I mean? Uh, while not advertised, these two nations are often so Japan and South Korea. These two nations are often top spenders on actual political lobbying. In 2024, Japan was the number one spender in U.S. influence, followed by South Korea. Uh, Purpose. Their spending is almost entirely economic. They hire lobbyists to secure favorable terms in automotive industries, uh, semiconductor manufacturing, and trade agreements to compete with China. Summary table. So it talks about Qatar spending 6.6 billion, China spending 2 billion, Saudi Arabia spending 4.9 billion, UAE spending 1.7 billion. The 6.6 billion from Qatar is spent on liberal arts, journalism branch campuses. China spends their 2.2. They just spend their 2 billion on STEM research, language slash culture. Saudi Arabia spent their 3.9 billion. Islamic studies, engineering, and tuition. And the UAE spent their 1.7 billion policy research, medicine think tanks. That's a tongue twister for Daily Boy. I don't know why. Why is this happening now? A new federal law, Section 117 of Higher Education Act, now requires universities to disclose any gifts over 250,000. Recent investigations discovered that schools had failed to report over 6.5 billion in foreign money, leading up to massive push for transparency in 2024 and 2025. Recent investigations into foreign funding, especially under Section 117 of the Higher Education Act, has revealed that a small group of elite U.S. universities receive a vast majority of this money As of late 2025, the total amount of foreign funding disclosed by the U.S. universities has surpassed 20 billion. Here is the breakdown of the top recipients and their primary donors. So, according to the Department of Education data, independent audits from 2024 to 2025, these schools have received the most foreign funding. So, Harvard University, 3.22 billion, China, UK, Hong Kong, and Qatar, right? That's from those places, right? Cornell University, 2.84 billion, Qatar, top donor, UAE. Carnegie Mellon, 2.82 billion, Qatar and China. Number four, Univ and Pennsylvania, 2.54 billion, China, Hong Kong, Saudi Arabia. MIT, 2.13 billion, China, Saudi Arabia, UK. Stanford, 1.78 billion, China, Hong Kong, Japan. John Hopkins, 1.5 billion. Various medicine research focus, right? So like probably all of them, or a few of them. Yale University, 1.42 billion, Hong Kong, China, and the UK. Georgetown University, 1.29 billion, Qatar, top donor. Columbia University, 1.18 billion, China, Qatar, UAE. You ever wonder why these are the most liberal, weirdo universities out there? Now you know. And you could take this formula that I just showed you and then apply it to any industry. Apply it to your most liberal politicians. Apply it to your most, like, saying backwards. Okay, maybe not use the liberal, because libs, saying, people believe in different things. But like the most counterproductive politicians, the ones that are selling out your jobs and giving it to certain countries on this list, the ones that are selling out your product, like your ability to market and make your own products or extract your own resources and use your own resources in your country, and buying the resources from other nations and sending away your taxpayers' dollars in droves to these other nations. Why would they do that? I don't know. Everybody's silly. We don't know why. Of course we don't know why, because you know what I'm saying. Like anytime you get to do an investigation, right? There's a murder in the house. You come in, you're like, oh, the wife is dead. What happened? You know what I'm saying? Who had a motive? Oh, she had a big insurance policy. Who's collecting on that insurance? Oh, the husband was set up to receive the insurance. Oh, he has a mistress. There's a motive. So maybe he wanted the money. Like, you always look for the incentive. Why would someone spend so much money trying to and you know what? Maybe I sound a little crazy. I don't blame them. I don't blame them. You know what I'm saying? They're playing the game, bro. They're trying to win. You know what I'm saying? But don't act like, this chessboard that I'm talking about doesn't exist. Don't act like the world doesn't have these various sides and these competing ideas and these competing ideologies. And don't act like, you know what I'm saying, you don't got enemies. You don't got people that hate you, your way of life, etc. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, let me try to power through this. I'm gonna call them back. My people from the church are now in the US and they're just trying to link your boy. Maybe I should pause and answer. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna pause and answer this one. 1 second, guys. Alright, we back. We back. Yo, I wonder if my video got recorded. I'm sure it did. I felt like it should have, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, so, I don't even know where I was at, but y'all get the point. We know that these things are happening. We know that these fundings are happening. We know that there's something going on. There's a reason why these people are spending money. And now it's starting to click, right? Like if you read anything or you heard anything I said in part one of this video and you said, yeah, that is weird. Why do we do that? Here's a bunch of different reasons as to why. There's a bunch of different interests across the board that people have their own thing that they're trying to push there. And to be honest with you, we should be pushing our agenda. It's not even like, look, I'm not even saying, okay, whatever. Like, I'm a Christian. You know what I'm saying? I'm a Christian. I want the world to be Christian. I'm not gonna, of course, in Christianity, it's like, we can't force you to be a Christian or something like that. And we give you the free will because we believe that God gave us free will, and you have to come on your own terms. I still support you to do your own thing and be whatever, even if you want to be. But even if, like, I mean, sin is sin, bro. Sometimes Christians look at gay people and they're like, oh, the gays and that. But yo, it's, you have a freedom too. You, like, if you're committing sexual immorality, you're sexually immoral, right? So, like, you get to work that stuff out in between you and whatever. Certain things are like affecting other people and it's criminal and stuff like that. I would say we would stop at like certain common sense programs. Like, of course, you don't want to endanger women by having men and women spaces. Of course, you don't want to have like teachers teaching your kids things that they have no business teaching your kids, and you should be able to, what I'm saying, in the free market of ideas, share openly and freely. They're allowed to share their ideas as well. You're allowed to share your ideas as well. Counter to that, and it should be no hate speech in that, even if you find it hateful or whatnot. Like, it's still like free flow of ideas. And of course, like, when it comes to harming people and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? Dog, I'm even for, let me say this on record. I wonder if this is gonna get the video taken down. I'm for, burning religious texts if you guys want. Like, if you feel like you hate the Bible, you feel like it's caused oppression or something, and you want to burn the Bible, I would say don't do it, because I would say God, Jesus is not nobody to play with. But as far as Daily Boy, I'm not gonna do you nothing. I might just pray for you. I might, and I've seen this. I've seen people dash away a Bible or something like that. I gave them, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, yo, God, will you just forgive him, because I don't want them to really get the recompense for their action, especially them not knowing what they're doing, right? Same thing, like if I see somebody burning, so if you wanted to burn a Quran, if you wanted to burn some other book that you find really offensive or like something like that, freedom of speech, you're allowed to do that type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's a form of protest, of course. Not burn it aside on somewhere else, like find a good spot. Don't be blocking traffic or something like that. That's wild, Don't impose on other people's right to exercise your right, But these free ideas are out here. As a Christian, I'm about spending money in other people's nations. If we can funnel some money, I do it actually. I funnel money to like influence people. I take my own money and I spend it to bless people in the streets and stuff like that, in hopes that I could be able to have a conversation, in hopes that I could be the hand and the feet of Jesus to somebody, that I could show the love of Jesus to somebody. And then I'm hoping that they would let me in close enough that I could minister to them and I could lead them to the well of water where they don't need me to come and help them. They don't need me to get in nothing. They have Jesus in their heart. They're good. And even if they passed away in the night, the same night, they're good because they're blessed. They're gonna, John knows they're gonna end up absent from the body and present with the Lord. You know what I'm saying? So I am for, funding, but what I'm talking about is, in my belief, this is the wrong ideology. Some of these things are negative. You know what I'm saying? And and maybe my policies will change over time. Some of these stuff, of course, Japan wants to take care of its own interests. Of course, South Korea wants to take care of its own interests. Of course, Saudi Arabia wants to take care of its own interests. Of course, you know what I'm saying? But sometimes some people's interests are not in our interests, you know what I'm saying? And so, you gotta watch that, right? And then sometimes some people just want to destroy you so that way, in their own interest. And sometimes they think it's good for you. I'm convinced that this is gonna sound wild too, right? I'm convinced that Hitler thought he was doing a good thing. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he knew he was evil or whatever. But I think a lot of these ideologues that led to the greatest tragedies in our universe had thought they were doing the right thing. I think both people, I think in an army, the both sides have people on both sides leaving their house, kissing their wife and children goodbye, praying to their God, and heading out thinking, I'm on the right side of history. I'm doing the right thing. You know what I'm saying? And I think that they meet up and they kill each other on the battlefield, both with the same fervor and conviction that they're on the right side of history, that they're fighting for their people, they're fighting for their survival, they're fighting for their God, they're fighting for their country, they're fighting for their ideology. You know what I'm saying? And I'm convinced. Well, sometimes in a lot of these cases, some of them are actually convinced they're doing the right thing. I believe that Hitler probably believed if the Aryan race was the only race on the universe, it would have been a better thing for humanity at all. And this whole darkness of having to wax, all starting with the Jews first and then moving on to everyone else and taking full power of the earth, this was the best thing for humanity. We don't need diversity. It's like, you know what I'm saying? That I'm convinced that he was convinced of that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying he's right. Obviously, we know that this man was straight up evil, and but it might have been his fervor. It might have been his idea of what was better for the universe. And so, similarly, like I believe we ought to like know the schemes. We ought to see the chess moves. We ought to make sure we're positioning our pieces right. We ought to make sure we're studying the strategies of the enemy, and then we ought to implement the strategies according to our beliefs, according to our systems, to fight for our systems, to fight for like not just us. When I say us, bro, like there's the us that are Christians. There's the us that are like on certain sides of different issues, whether it be abortions, whether it be religious freedom, whether it be women's rights, whether it be whatever it is you think you're on. These are virtues in your system that allows you to live of like of course having safe and secure societies to live in. Whatever it is that you think is the best thing for your society, that side that you're fighting for, I'm sure, you want to see those things, furthered into into the universe that you live in. And so not even just us as us people who believe in these ideas, but the people who don't. We like are the people who are living under oppression of governments and things like that that don't allow them to express their freedom, even if it's against things that you want to do. Because I think, with the virtue of this freedom, you have the ability. And I think that's a God given. I think when God gave us free will, that's what it is. Like there's the ability to do evil that's ingrained in free will. And so when you have free societies, you're gonna have people who choose to live differently from you, and that's okay. That's a part of having a free society. But you have to be free to share ideas as well, right? And so it's not even just for us, it's even for those who don't believe yet. Because at the end of the day, we want to reach them. You know what I'm saying? We want to preach to them. We want to see them convert. I want to see Iran become a Christian country. I'm not going to lie to you. I want to see, Egypt become a Christian country, Lebanon and Syria and Morocco and all these countries that used to be Christian at one point, and even China and North Korea. And like, you know what I'm saying? I want to see Christianity do free up in those countries. Maybe not Christian country, maybe that's not the right thing, but I want Christian liberties to be there where people can freely practice their religion, where people can freely talk about their faith, where people can freely criticize the other ideologies in order to show them as less than and show our ideas as superior. You know what I'm saying? I want free debates and free speech. I want like the ability to share your way of life and talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about. I want you to have the ability to own your land and own your house that's on it and take care of your family and raise your family with the values that you think, as long as your values is not imposing. Of course everybody's, if I'm saying something is a sin, of course that might seem like I'm imposing on you. I'm not imposing on you. I'm just telling you, hey, that's what you're doing is wrong. You get to choose whether you keep doing it or not. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna do you nothing. Now when it comes to a line of you hurting other people or something like that, that's gonna be a problem. Like I'll give you an example. If one day, right, we figured out that um you know something that is a religious freedom for another person. Let's use the Muslims for instance that wear the burqa. Let's say you got the full coverings, and we started finding out that it actually became dangerous in our societies because we can't we need to see, let's say, a lot of crime is being committed and people are wearing these the suits basically basically to commit those crimes. There might be a day in which we say, hey man, like look, we don't want this. We don't want you guys to wear this anymore in our society. So here's your options. If you're gonna live here, you give that one aspect up. By the way, let me just say that from studying Islam, there are times where out of necessities, like if you're hungry and you're dying, you're allowed to eat pork. Most Muslims will tell you that. You know what I'm saying? So there's exceptions to the rule. So if you're living in a society and they decide this is dangerous, it's not something, and even you might, as a Muslim, you might be like, yeah, that's sad. Like, yeah, but there has been a lot of attacks from people wearing these things and like doing stuff, and because it's obfuscating the cameras and you can't see, who it is that's behind these attacks and things like that, then there might become a day where someone might say, well, this is against, and then in that case, you get to choose, like, okay, I'm gonna go to a Sharia country and live there where I can wear my like thing and like, you know what I'm saying? Or you get to choose to say, okay, you know what? It's not worth it. I'm gonna take it off because I don't want. So there are situations in which someone might compromise. I know my Christians will be like, yeah, but Dale, we won't compromise. Well, first of all, a lot of so-called Christians do compromise on a lot of things, but if your fervor is as such, then go to jail for your like fervor. That's what happens. I've seen a lot of Christian memes where they're like, yo, they show like people in chains or something like that, and they're like, yo, this when Christianity becomes illegal, because these mans are ready. We talk about the mans that, what was it, 11 years ago, where they were beheaded by Hamas, not Hamas, ISIS. You know what I'm saying? The 21 martyrs, they call them, for Christian faith, where they chose to take the beheading because they're like, yeah, well, we're not giving up our faith, and that is part and parcel what can happen in these situations as well. It's like people could stand on business for their faith in those societies, which I know a lot of Christians would, I know a lot of Muslims would, you know what I'm saying? A lot of, yeah, you got, even, I would say even like, man's like, these Democrats in Minneapolis that are fighting with law enforcement. Dog, those mans have fervor, bro. Those mans are dying for their cause. They're serious about it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not making light of it or anything like that, but they're dying for what they believe in. So there might come a day in society where that might be a relevant thing. Deep dive into China and Qatar. These countries are the two most scrutinized because their funding is often tied to specific strategic goals, technology, and narrative influence. China is influence. China has funneled over 3.7 billion into more than 200 U.S. institutions. The hidden funding fraud. The hidden funding investigations have found that much of China's money comes through Hong Kong entities, private corporations, contacts that were not always reported as government funding. Top recipients, Harvard, NYU, Columbia, and Stanford, are the primary targets. Purpose, much of this focus is on stem cells. Oh wait, I think I've already read some of this. Anyways, let's see. I've read a lot of these. We're just gonna skip by these things. I think you guys kind of get these systems anyways. There's something called CRINK, CRINK. Have you guys heard of this? Alliance, right? This is China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea by Western analysis. While they do not have a single unified NATO-style treaty, they have formed a powerful web of bilateral strategic partnerships. Venezuela is often considered a primary associate or hemispheric partner of the group in the Americas. Now do you guys see how? So you got China, you got Russia, you got Iran, and you got North Korea, right? And they're like basically have their own weird like NATO kind of group going on, and they're like doing something. And then Venezuela was critical to this whole thing in a lot of ways, and this is why you might venture to say why Venezuela was a particular interest to the U.S. And of course, Venezuela is right in the backyard of the U.S. And so now here's them encroaching in a NATO-style intrusion into territories closer to the U.S. where they can disarm and be within striking distance of the U.S. in case anything happens. Now, usually these things are not actually for them to strike, but it's actually for them to have negotiating power. And so this is why, when you see President Donald J. Trump talking about, these type of things, it's real, bro. It's really going on out here. So like, you guys be, if you want to say it's not true and it's all like hoax, what I'm saying, you're basically uninformed is what I'm gonna say, unless you got something for me that will change my mind. You know what I'm saying? I'm like Charlie Kirk. I'm like these guys. I'm ready. Change my mind if you can. You know what I'm saying? Come talk to Daily Boy. Come debate. Come like do something. I'll put you on the channel if you're good enough. If you're like you can hold a good conversation, we'll sit cross by cross right here and we'll chat. You know what I'm saying? If you guys want, so holler at your boy. You know what I mean? Venezuela is often considered primary associate and the hemisphere partners of this group in the Americas. The Core Crink Alliance, the Deadly Quartet, they call them. The primary members, characterizations by shared goals of challenging Western influence and their deep military cooperation. China provides the economic engine and dual use technology. Russia, the military anchor, currently engaging in high level defense treaties and with others to support its war efforts. Iran supplies drone technologies and missiles, recently signed a 20-year comprehensive strategic cooperation treaty with Russia. In January 2025, North Korea provides massive quantities of artillery and more recently have deployed personnel to assist Russia. Venezuela's role in the hub in the Americas. Venezuela acts as a critical strategic outpost for this group. Its involvement is defined by anti-hemispheric solidarity. The with Russia, Russia is Venezuela's credit lifeline. They share a strategic partnership involving energy, Rosneft, weapons, S-300 air defense, and periodic joint military maneuvers in the Caribbean. Interesting. Hey, yo, bro, Guyana, watch yourself with your oil, you know what I'm saying? Because now you guys, Guyana right now, best way I could talk to you guys is you guys are a man with a big gold chain in Georgetown, you know what I'm saying? That's it. You're walking around and you're a target. Now because Guyana has oil, everybody's a. When you see these Arabian looking dudes sitting around, and when you see our president, Irfan Ali, dressed up with his little Arabian outfit and thing like that, yo, it's cause for concerns because, what I'm saying? Like I said, there's alliances and like NATO's and cranks and like all kinds of stuff happening on the chessboard. So you got to be careful who you get in bed with. No Diddy, you know what I mean? With China, China is the largest buyer of Venezuelan oil and has built much of their country digital and satellite infrastructure. Recent updates 2025, the late 2025, Venezuela has deepened its deepened these ties farther as a means to bias U.S. Blockades on its oil tanks, right? Why this group is working together now. Historically, these countries had very different ideologies. However, in 2025, they have converged for these political reasons. Sanction proofing. They are building a parallel economy using the yen and ruble instead of the dollar, so they can trade with each other regardless of Western sanctions. So they're trying to like make sure that they can dodge the sanctions effectively, right? So they don't have to listen to the U.S., right? They don't have to negotiate or whatever, Military resupply. Russia needs to for ammunition and turn North Korea and Iran into essential military factories for the Russian army. Diplomatic shielding. They constantly vote as a bloc in the UN to block resolutions proposed by the US or the EU. You ever wonder why? You know what I'm saying? You ever wonder why the UN doesn't seem to be able to accomplish anything? Socialism, global democracy, status 2025, China, classification, authoritarian regime, status not free, key details, operates as one party state under the Chinese Communist Party CCP. There are no national free elections, and the government maintains strict self control over the media, internet, and civil liberties. Russia, classified as authoritarian regime, status also not free. Key details: power is heavily concentrated in the presidency. While elections are held, they are characterized by the suppression of the opposition candidate, lack of media freedom, and widespread reports of fraud. Iran, classification authoritarian, theocratic, also not free. Key details: the theocracy are ultimate authority rest with the theocracy where the ultimate a theocracy where ultimate authority rests with an unelected supreme leader, while there is an elected president and parliament. All candidates must be vetted and approved by religious councils first. North Korea, classification authoritarian, totalitarian. Status not free. Key detail: frequently ranked as the latest democratic country in the world. Sorry, the least democratic country in the world. Wow, latest. It is a dynastic dictatorship that exercises total control over every aspect of public and private life. Venezuela, classified as authoritarian regime. Status also not free. Key details: formerly a democracy, it has transitioned into a dictatorship. The 2024 presidential election was widely condemned as fraudulent by international community, and the government frequently jails or exiles political opponents. So China, officially labeled socialist with Chinese characteristics. The reality, most economies call it state capitalism. China has more billionaires than almost any other country and massive private sectors like Alibaba and Huawei. However, the Communist Party keeps golden shares in private companies, meaning the government can step in and take control of any business at any time. Russia, officially labeled as market economy. The reality: Russia moved away from socialism after the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991. Today, it is a crony capitalist system. While most things are privately owned, the most valuable industry like oil and gas are controlled by oligarchs who are personally loyal to the Kremlin, right? It is not socialist in the sense of providing a massive welfare state. It is a system where wealth is concentrated at the top. Venezuela, officially labeled as socialism of 2020, socialism of the 21st century. The reality: this is the closest to what people traditionally mean by socialist, but it is often described as state directed economic collapse. The government seized private farms and oil companies, but instead of the people owning them, they are managed by military generals and party loyalists. This has led to hyperinflation and repressed economy where the state controls the price of everything. North Korea, officially labeled as, was that, Juche? I don't know, self reliance. The reality: this is a totalitarian command economy. It is the most extreme version of state control on earth. The government decides what you eat, where you work, and what is produced. It is socialist, quote unquote, only in the sense that there is almost no legal private property, but wealth is used for military rather than the public good. Iran, officially labeled as Islamic Republic, the reality Iran is a theocracy, mixed economy. Uh, Large parts of the economy, about 60%, are controlled by religious foundations called boneyards. And the Revolutionary Guard, the IRGC. It is it isn't socialist or capitalist. It is a system where the religious and military elite control the major industries: oil, construction, telecommunication, everything. Right? Is it so? Venezuela has been implicated in international trafficking, and these allegations reach the highest levels of Maduro government, including his own family. The connection between this drug money and Islamic extremist groups is a major focus of the U.S. intelligence, specifically regarding the relationships between Venezuela and Hezbollah, the narco nephew scandal. So, the most direct evidence involving Maduro's family is Narcos Sobranos, the narco nephew, right, affair. The arrest in 2015, two nephews of Maduro's wife, Chilea Flores and Irfan and Antonio Campo Flores and was this Francisco Flores the Freitas. Where, man, these mans have some long names, as you guys know. Basically, two nephews of Maduro, right? Were arrested by the DEA in Haiti. The conviction: they were found guilty of conspiracy to import 400 kilograms of cocaine into the U.S. while using president hangars at the airport in Caracas. Evidence shows that they intend to use the money to help their families stay in power. Clemency and sanctions. Although they were granted clemency in 2022, prisoner swap, as as of December 2025, the U.S. Treasury has re-sanctioned them, alleging that they have returned to Venezuela and resumed their trafficking activities. The cartel of the Suns. The U.S. prosecutor has officially charged Nicolas Maduro himself as leader of the Cartel de los Soles, Cartel of the Suns. This is not a traditional cartel like those in Mexico, but rather a network within Venezuelan military government. I'm just reading all of this out, and then we'll talk about it in a second, right? I actually have to go pick up my daughter soon. The allegations: the U.S. Department of Justice alleges that Maduro and other high ranking officials worked with FARC and Colombian Marxist rebel group to flood the U.S. state with cocaine. Remember, if you go back to my first video that I started on This Is Islam, I was saying that, like, I wish I had put out this video series, which I had written before the Maduro arrest. And so, like, I was like, man, if I had gotten this out before the Maduro arrest, then it would have been crazy. Because when I started putting together this information, sort of discovering all this stuff all at once, I was like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? I was like, what's going on? And then Maduro got arrested like a week later, and I was like, man, like, I should have not been a bum and just put it out, you know? Anyways, I think it's still beneficial and fruitful. At least you guys can see some of these connections. Connection to Islamic groups and Hezbollah, right? The link to Islamic terror. The group primarily centers on Hezbollah and Lebanese group backed by Iran. The crime terror nexus. Research organizations like RAND Corporation, and the Atlantic Council have documented how Hezbollah operates as a massive money laundering and drug trafficking hub out of Venezuela. Reciprocal support. In exchange for providing Hezbollah with safe haven and diplomatic cover, including Venezuela passports and operatives, the Maduro regime reportedly receives assistance by bypassing international oil sanctions and laundering illicit cash. The Iran connection, because Iran and Venezuela are close allies, Hezbollah as Iran's proxy and has been able to embed itself in the region to raise fund for its operations in the Middle East. The connection between Venezuela government, international drug trafficking, and Colombian migrant groups is a well-documented concern of international security agency. The primary group involved are FARC, the Revolutionary Army Forces of Colombia, and the ELN, the National Liberation Army. The FARC and ELN Venezuela. While these groups originated in Colombia, they have used Venezuela as a safe haven for decades. Control of territories. As of late 2025, reports indicate that the ELN and FARC, dissident, those who refused to lay down their arms after 2016 peace treaty, effectively control large swaths of Venezuelan territory, particularly near the border and in gold mining regions. State cooperation, unlike other regions, other regional neighbors like Mexico or El Salvador, that cooperates with the U.S. to fight these groups. The Maduro regime has been accused of openly cooperating with them. So they are allowed to operate unencumbered and unimpeded within Venezuela, right? The drug terror business model. The relationship is essentially a business partnership built on cocaine production and transit. The Colombian groups manage the production of cocaine in the jungle and transport it into Venezuela. Venezuela then serves as a primary transshipment point where the drugs are loaded onto planes or shipped to destinations in US and in Europe. The Cahoot system. In exchange for allowing these groups to use Venezuelan soil, the Venezuelan military, the cartel of the Suns, reportedly takes a tax or a cut of the profits. This money is used to keep Maduro's regime afloat despite international sanctions. Funding for global Islamic groups, as we discussed earlier, this is where the money moves from South America to the Middle East. Hezbollah's role. Hezbollah operates as a middleman in these systems. They use their expertise in global money laundering to move dirty drug money from FARC, ELN, and Venezuelan government through shell companies and banks in the Middle East. The trade. Reports from 2024 and 2025 suggest that in exchange for laundering this money and providing security training, Hezbollah receives a steady stream of funding for its operation against Israel in the Syrian conflict. Summary of Quartet of Crime. To simplify how this works, the FARC and ELN produces the drugs and controls the border. Venezuela, Maduro provides the safe haven, the airports and protection. Iran and Hezbollah provides the laundering services and uses the profits to fund Islamic militant activities. The cartels move the final product to the streets of North America and Europe, and the crime terror nexus is used is why the U.S. and other nations view situation in Venezuela as a global security threat rather than just a local political issue. China has given Venezuela more than 60 billion in over the last 20 years, but they have generally refused to forgive the debt. Instead, they have restructured it to allow Venezuelans to pay back in oil. As of late 2025, Venezuela owes China approximately 13 billion to 19 billion. The loan for oil system, unlike bank loans, They pay back in cash. China deals with Venezuela. Commodity swap. The deal: China sets billions in cash to the sent billions in cash to the Venezuelan government to fund infrastructure and social programs. The repayment in return, Venezuela state companies PDVSA was required to ship hundreds and thousands of barrels of oil to China every day. The problem is the Venezuelan oil industry collapsed due to the mismanagement and sanctions. They couldn't produce enough oil to pay back. The debt forgiveness versus grace period. China is famous for financial in the financial world for not forgiving debts. While they occasionally write off small interest-free loans for very poor African nations, they have threatened Venezuela as a business partner. Grace period. Instead of forgiving billions, China has reportedly given Venezuela grace period, like in 2016 and 2020, where Venezuela was allowed to only pay the interest and skip the principal payments for a few years. Oil and thing. You know what? Let me explain what's going on there in general. So China is loaning massive bits of money to these places, and then now they were there taking the oil. Now, of course, since now that between then and now things have changed. Of course, Maduro's gone. Right now, in fact, there's still the same government in place, and that's largely because the military branches have been the ruling class for the longest time and main beneficiaries of the sort of transactions that are going on there. And of course, they're representing their own interests and whatnot, right? I got some other stuff to read here. The subversion framework, the famous explanation is that of the tactics comes from Yuri Bemen, Bezmenov, a KGB dictator who gave an interview in 1980s that have seen a massive resurgence in 2024 and 2025. He argued that only 15% of espionage is about spying like James Bond. The other 85% is a slow process of changing the perception and reality in the enemy's mind, right? He describes a four-stage process that aligns with what you are seeing. Demoralization, 15 to 20 years. This is the time that it takes to educate one generation. The goal is to influence the education system so that the new generation no longer believes in their own country's values or biological truth. Do you guys see that? Is that happening? Is that something that we discussed a lot in part one video? Destabilization. Once the generation is demoralized, you target the society's basic institution, family, religion, and media. Is that going on in the West? I don't know. Maybe, right? To make them dysfunctional. Is that happening? Maybe. I don't know. Crisis. A major, what is this? Societal shift or collapse according to occurs because people can no longer agree in the most basic facts. Is that happening in the US or not? I don't know. Is that happening in Canada? I don't know. Is that happening in the West? I don't know. Normalization. A new and often authoritarian order is established to fix the chaos that was created. Is that happening? I don't know. Is there like maybe a democratic socialist Muslim leader taking over one of the largest places in the US? Are there like many Muslim leaders taking over, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Are there people out here arguing that our system is bad and failing and you know what I'm saying? Arguing against themselves and like, you know, kissing the feet of their would-be captors? I don't know. The strategic chess move. So, you know, anyways, I'm gonna leave this stuff behind. I think we're done. These are weaknesses being exploited. Okay, we're just gonna call it quits there, man. I think we did a good enough job to show that there's very good connection between the strategic moves that are happening, between this being an actual like incursion on sort of warfare tactic that's being used on soil against Western civilization. And again, like I said, there's lots of different reasons as to why people would side with these type of ideologies. There's lots of different reasons as to why someone might believe in something as counterproductive as like abortions or various other things that are very counterproductive to our narratives. There's lots of ways that they fed us these pills and made us swallow these pills. But here we can see that there are strategic goals aligned by historical enemies of the West that have alignment in authoritarianism and socialism and communism and anarchism and Marxism and these different isms that really go against our freedoms and our rights and our like thoughts and our way of life and our thriving societies that we've been able to build over a long course of time of us, like, what I'm saying, applying our, not only our faith but also like just God-given wisdom and understanding in what, even the trial and errors of history to build one of the greatest civilizations on the planet as we know it to today. Now, do not be dismayed, do not be discouraged. You know what I'm saying? The Lord, your God, has known about these plans for a long time, has laid them out in scripture for a long time. This is not new to history. It's a cycle that's been happening over and over again. There's complacency, and then there's like the fall, and then there's like the picking up of the society and rebuilding the society and coming back to like, a righteous mind state and coming back to the principles that made you great in the first place and rebuilding and becoming great and then falling over again. You could read the book of Judges, you'll see that over and over again. But yeah, I hope that answers the question. And I think that's it. That's the cap on this series. There's a reason for why, the West is suicidal. There is an attack from an enemy from the outside and from within, spiritually, from the top down, from Satan himself to other ideologies that are against Christ, ultimately antichrist religions and antichrist thought leaders and antichrist like fleshly guided human beings that wants to just have bodily autonomy to believe whatever they want about themselves and practice whatever they want, lawlessness and wickedness, and influence our children and poison the minds of our communities and kingdoms and poison ourselves against each other, largely so we could destroy each other from within, so we can weaken ourselves and so that we can become victims to the incursion that's coming. Anyways, I hope all of that made sense. I hope that, it was helpful and fruitful. I hope you guys learned something. And even if you don't agree with me and you research and you come up with some other ideas and you're like, you know what, Dale doesn't have the full picture. He's seeing things from one side. At least you're thinking and you're moving and you're getting along and you're like, noticing things as they're happening in your universe and your world. Other than that, I love y'all. Thanks for being with me, rocking with me, staying around this long, listening to me rant. And I'll catch you guys in the next video, man. Maybe I'll do Epstein first. You guys let me know what you guys want me to talk about. You know what I'm saying? Either in person or in the comment section. Let me know what you guys want me to discuss anytime. I'm probably going to make a couple of short videos and stuff. Love you guys. God bless. I'm going to go pick up my daughter. Done now. I'm excited to see her actually because she's coming back from the States. I missed her. She was gone for the whole weekend. Bless.